Hello guys and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you the Battlegroup preview for the Festung Groß-Paris division in the new Back to Hell DLC. Now before I begin I have to state that the stats and balance are subject to change due to this being recorded on the pre-release build of the DLC. Also, this is not a Battlegroup overview in that I wouldn't recommend copying my division, as I will just be pointing out the new notable choices and statistics on different units. So let's start off in the Recon tab. To begin, we have the BMW R75, and this is a standard motorcycle that we've seen before. We have the Aufklärer in the Panzer MG. Now this Panzer MG is new. It has 3 front armor and the MG34, going to be useful for fire support for infantry squads. Maybe not your Aufklärer since they'll be hiding, but Aufklärer definitely going to be the staple of your Phase A Recon infantry, as it's the only Phase A Recon infantry you have access to. Then we have the Puma here. This is a 2-star Puma and will definitely be making the lineup. And then in Phase B there is access to 2-star Speed Troop with 2-star half tracks, which could definitely come in handy. Nothing new here really. Let's move on to the Infantry tab. So to start off with the Infantry tab, we have the Grenadier, and again, nothing new really, but they do accompany these Landesschützen, and Landesschützen is a new squad that we haven't seen before. 11 strength, they have 11 Kar 98s between them, and I don't know, they're not the best squad that we've ever seen in Steel Division, and are more likely to be used as bullet sponges than anything else, taking a similar role to Ersatztruppen. The thing that makes them better than Ersatztruppen is that they don't have the dishearten trait, so they won't get pinned down as easily, which might allow you to make a little bit more ground if you're charging across the open. But that's basically what I think all of these guys are going to be useful for. But following up to the Landesschützen, we have the Felder Gendarmerie, which are very cool indeed. These guys have 4 MP40s, an awesome uniform. They have a H3 and 3 smoke grenades. So they will be able to do some groovy maneuvers with these smoke grenades for sure. They could take out enemy infantry at the 100 meter range. They can take out armor at 100 meter range. And with those smokes, they can also keep themselves safe. With them being 2 stars, their command radius will be relatively large, which will also be pretty awesome as well. Let's move on to the Bewährungs. These guys are very cool indeed. The largest strength squad that we've seen so far in Steel Division. They have 15 strength, which is quite something. Going to be very hard to dislodge indeed. They come with the Beretta M38. They've got 13 Mosin Nagants, and they have the FM 2429 and the H3. So at range, they put out 6 HE at 300 meter range and 7 HE at 100 meter range. Crazy stuff. Very interesting unit indeed, and I expect them to be making up the majority of Phase A infantry in the Festung Groß-Paris division. Let's move on to the Marine infantry. These guys have awesome uniforms, and I guess they're relatively useful defensively, since they can put out the 4 HE at 400 meter range. This MG15 puts out a lot of damage, especially if you compare it to something like a Bren gun, which only has 2 HE. So a good sort of comparison for this Marine infantry would be a Bren group, except from they have the dishearten trait, but they do have extra HE to sort of cater for that. So an interesting unit. Not entirely sure if they're going to make it into the lineup for many divisions, but either way, let's continue as we can find ourselves the Luftwaffe Fuhrer and the Luftwaffe Jäger. We've seen these guys before in the 16th Luftwaffe division, so not too much to talk about here, but will probably find their way into the infantry tab of this division. Then moving on, we have the KM Fuhrer, which is a very nice squad indeed. This is a 12 strength command squad that can put out 10 HE at 300 meter range and 8 HE at 100 meter range. They also have 3 smoke grenades. So these KM Fuhrer, they ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Not only do they have lots of bodies, they have plenty of smoke to keep those bodies alive. So you're going to be able to keep command on your infantry for a very long time with those KM Fuhrer. Then next up we have the Russian Liberation Army. These guys are absolutely awesome. They are anti-communist troops that defected to Germany during World War II. And basically they come fully equipped with a Russian arsenal of 3 PPSHs, 7 Mosin Nagants, they have the DP-28 machine gun, and they also have a Faustpatron. So these PPSHs, they have really high HE per gun, like 4 HE per gun, which means at 100 meter range they can put out 14 HE in total. At longer ranges it's only 4 HE. At 300 meter range, at 400 meter range it's 2 HE. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily engaging these guys at range as they will underperform, but at closer ranges these guys can do a lot of damage for sure. They're also going to be much more effective against armor at close range as well. But I think these are going to be staple for the Phase B infantry in this division. Then moving into Phase C, it's all about availability and elite troops. So we have Grenadier, which you can get 4 of in each slot. You then have Landeschützen, which you can get 8 of in each slot, which is absolutely crazy. And then to finish things off, we've got elite Panzergrenadier, Panzer Grenadiers and MG42s. So Panzer Grenadier available in Kubels and the U304 pack. Then we have Panzer Grenadiers both available in the KFZ70 and the U304, and then 2-star MG42s. And I think it's probably likely that we're just going to see some maybe elite Panzer Grens in Phase C. The other sort of command units maybe not so much. But that is basically all of the infantry summed up. Some really awesome units in here. The Landeschützen, the Bewährungs, the new uniforms on the Marine infantries. A lot of work went into the infantry in this division for sure. And of course the Russian Liberation Army. All very, very cool units. Let's move on to the Tank Tab. So the Tank Tab, after what was a pretty awesome Infantry Tab, is maybe a bit lackluster in comparison. You get access to Panzer 35s and Panzer 39s in Phase A. There's also access though to the Panzer 40R, which is exactly the same stats really as a Panzer 39, except from it sort of has command. That's like pretty much all you're paying for extra there. There's also a little bit more armor on the front of the Panzer 4R. So it's probably worth bringing in for command. Then on top of that you can bring in a Panzer B2, so that's likely to be your Phase A armor. Maybe even the Befehl Panzer 3H might fit in there. In Phase B you've got the Befehl Panzer 35S. Then you have the Panzer 4H and the Stug 3. That's probably going to end up being your lineup. And then in Phase C, this is where the big guns arrive. You have the Tigers available. You can get 2 at 1-star or 1 at 2-star. You've got Panther Ds available at 2-star veterancy as well. Befehl Panther in there and 2 Panther Gs also available. So you're going to have to take your pick. Honestly though, these Panther Ds do fit in very well because after 2 minutes you can be guaranteed a Panther D. And a 3-star Panther D will still be able to fight against most allied units at range. At close range they will suffer due to the low aim time compared to a Panther G or like a Panther A or something like that. But definitely an interesting tank tab for sure. You lack firepower in Phase A and B, but in Phase C it all arrives to back you up. But that's kind of when you don't have many points to actually purchase it. So spamming your division with multiple Panthers is probably not the best idea. Let's move on to the support tab. We see our first command motorcycle. This is pretty cool, except from the fact it probably won't be seen very much. Then we have the Panzer 1B, and honestly I think this is going to be a very strong unit. It's only 30 points per tank, and it puts out 13 HE, which I feel is enough to destroy some half-tracks and so on. Definitely do a lot of damage to infantry anyway, and does have the armor to fend off light arms fire. So I think this is going to be a pretty decent unit, honestly. Then there's the Flammenwerfer that come in the Kubel MG, very expensive for what they are. IG-18s are also available in Phase A and accompany your infantry quite well. But other than that, it's probably just going to be the support tab used for munitions more than anything, as the Flampanzer B2 may be a bit of a stretch in Phase B, especially without any veterancy. So not too much new to see here, just the Panzer 1B and the Befehl BMW R75. Now if we move on, we have the anti-tank. In Phase A, you have access to quite a few different choices. You've got Panzerschrecks, Pak 38s, Pak 36s, Panzerjäger 35s. And you can get Pak 38 with 1-star veterancy, but not 2-star. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what people choose. I think the Panzerschrecks are probably going to be necessary to accompany your infantry and give them that extra little bit of range on the AT. And then other than that, it's going to be either reliant on the Pak 38s or the Panzerjäger 35s to hold up the early game. There's also the availability to get one Pak 40 in Phase A as well. So we might see that come about. Moving into Phase B, there is a new type of AT squad. These are the Panzervernichtungs, which basically have 6 Gewehr 43s, and then they have a Panzerschreck. They don't have the very good stealth though, like the Panzerschreck squads do have, and that could make them suffer, but definitely accompany infantry into towns very well in Phase B. So I wouldn't be surprised to see people still use them, because they're actually very hard to kill, and they do have the Panzerschreck the entire time. Whereas with a normal Panzerschreck squad, it's only got 2 health. A Panzerschreck squad with 6 health is going to be a lot harder to remove. Moving into Phase B as well, we have access to a 2-star S307 pack, which is actually a pretty good value for money. It's only 80 points and has the 2 stars there, which is fantastic. Then there's also the Marder 1. We also have a Marder 3. And there's also the Pak 40s available, and I think Pak 40s will be the likely choice. In Phase C, there is a 2-star Jagdpanzer, which could be a nice choice if you're not focusing on bringing in your Panthers. Like say if you don't need to, you're not facing off against that heavy armor, a Jagdpanzer may do the job instead, in which case you can save yourself 60 points. Especially with like open range engagements. A Jagdpanzer will do just as well as a Panther, although the Panther of course has the extra AP. But yeah, interesting AT tab, very spread out, low availability cards that you need to basically choose for yourself and decide what you want to play around. Let's move on to the anti-air. So things a bit better in anti-air in terms of small amount of choices. You have access to the Flak 39, which is the same as the cannon that the SAS get. This Flak 39 has 1,000 meter range with 8 HE. Very good for taking down aircraft in Phase A, or at least forcing them to fall back. I think this is going to be a very highly used AA throughout both the divisions that have them. Then there is the SDKF Z10-4, which is useful if you need some more mobile anti-air. Then moving into Phase B, you have access to Flak 36s, but also another new anti-air gun, which is the Flak M36. So this is basically the same as a Flak 41, except it does not have the AP shells. It also lacks accuracy, and the caliber is different as well. So the Flak M36, it's basically primarily an AA gun. That's pretty much all it's there for. It can fire at infantry, but it's quite simply there to be an AA gun, whereas a Flak 41 can often be used as an AT gun as well. So it's an interesting choice. It depends whether or not you want to sacrifice the AP capabilities. There's also the difference in the phase that you can bring it in. So there's a reasonable amount of things to think about, but I'm not sure if that's worth it in Phase B, in my opinion. I reckon I would end up sticking to the Flak 36s instead of the M36. But yeah, the Flak 41's definitely going to be welcome in Phase C, I believe, just to sort of solidify the front lines. Then we have Artillery Tab. In the Artillery Tab, starting off, we have the 50mm mortars. These guys have the little pea shooter with the 700 meter range. BEO UE 630, a very interesting unit indeed, but overpriced for what it does. It fires off-map smoke support, which isn't something I bet any of you have heard of before, because it's brand new. It's an interesting idea, but doesn't necessarily work in practice, and then like I said before, it's relatively high priced for what it is. There's also the LEFH-16, and I think this is going to be a very, very good artillery piece, since it has 1,900 meter range in Phase A, which counters both 1,200 and 1,600 meter range mortars very easily. So the LEFH-16 I think is going to be played quite a bit in the early phases. In the later phases, in Phase B, you get the BEO Panzer 251-18, which comes with a 173mm off-map. There's more access to availability of LEFH-16s, and then you have the 2-star Hummel, which is going to be another common choice, I believe, for the Festung Groß-Paris division. Let's move into the Air Tab. So the Air Tab in this one does feature one of the new units, but before we click on it, let's just state that there is 4 Storches available in Phase A. But here we have the D520, and this is a converted French aircraft, which was captured by the Germans, and basically makes up the majority or all of the fighters in this division. It's not particularly great. 500 km/h speed is not very good. Agility excellent, might help it out a little bit in dogfights, but other than that, is likely to get itself shot down pretty often. Just here to sort of maybe shoot down enemy support aircraft like rocket aircraft, bombers and so on. Then you have access to the Ju-188s, and I guess the interesting thing about these Ju-188s is their cost. They only cost 125 points. They have 28 5HE power bombs, so they're basically a carpet bomber that I feel can like stun groups of units relatively easily. So it'd be interesting to see how these are used, especially considering the amount of availability you can get of them throughout the phases. So for example, you can get cards of 4 of them in Phase C, and you can buy 1 per minute. So you could just spam out a bunch of Ju-188s, and I feel like these are going to be the bane of the 10v10. It's going to be pretty funny. So yeah, D520s and Ju-188s just increasing in availability throughout the phases, increasing in maybe veterancy as well. But the one that everyone's been waiting for is this BEO Storch, which comes with the Karl Gerät 600mm artillery gun. It is absolutely crazy. It has 50 HE and can just demolish a town. It doesn't necessarily kill everything in the town, but it will definitely stun everything in the town when it hits, and that's going to be incredibly useful for causing mass surrenders and for just doing a serious amount of damage onto certain targets. It can kill tanks if it hits them directly as well, so there's that benefit, and that's just going to be absolutely crazy. It's a self-propelled howitzer and 600mm shell. Nuts. Anyway, that is the Festung Groß-Paris division. Pretty awesome indeed. Lots of lovely new infantry in there. A nice little new couple tanks as well, the Panzer 40R and the Panzer 1B. Nice flavour added to the division. The Flak 39 in there, the Panzer Vernichtungs. Then they have the Ju-188s and the D520. Lots of nice new flavourful units in this division that I think is going to make it pretty popular, honestly, upon release. But either way, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.